Right in the middle, the line begins with one word of gadol. Just about there. Okay. The middle of the page, the line begins with the word of gadol, and then below that is AYIN.
Okay, I know.
I want to briefly touch on the principle that we discussed yesterday, and some of us had a difficulty with it, and I want to get into it. We are saying here that an abbot serving his master is not full of anger and rejection and negativity, and you would rather be able to throw the whole yoke, the whole relationship off. He wants to be on his own, which is the mentality that has been promoted from the advent of democracy. Democracy is really a wonderful thing. But democracy itself also is longing and is demanding that there be a government, that there be rules, that there be enforcement of the rules. And these rules are not just so that people don't go out of the go on wild rampage, but this is a necessity in terms of human life. Human being living in the wilderness without there being a general structure to the environment in which he functions, he loses really the self-respect principle. But this is not what I want. This is just to counter, even from our superficial worldly view, to counter and show that this is not really the quest of the human being to be totally devoid of any kind of structure, bigger structure. The deeper and the truer principle behind this is that a human being really, his sense of reality, I'm repeating, his sense of reality is not based on his existence, but rather based on the presence of the bigger picture. Now there is, starting from there is a big world, but actually it goes even higher than that. That there is a first being that creates everything. That is the foundation of existence that a human being can orient within, with. so that whatever he does, and let's take it on the simplest level and whatever it is, we have traffic rules. Very simple requirement. Without traffic rules, we won't be able to cross a road. We will constantly be crashing into each other. However, this is really just a superficial understanding of the principle of traffic rules. Traffic rules is an expose of the principle that we do not live in isolation. And we prefer not to live in isolation, which is our by choice. Which is who we are. Which is what a human being is longing for. To have a fully developed environment. So that, yes, indeed, I live here next to a neighbor from both sides, and in the front and the back. These traffic rules are not rules superimposed. This is simple mode of interaction. Interaction within an environment that is a fundamental human definition of life. Where does that come from? One can say, hey, why would that be the case? Why would a human being want to be completely independent and do his own thing? And the answer to that is quite profound. But if we examine ourselves, we will be able to recognize the truth of this answer. The answer is that the existence, all existence, and then coming down to a worldly organization, has not created itself, did not develop evolutionarily as being perceived in the world. It was intentionally created. Who created it? And what was the principle behind it? That we have to dig in and try to understand. The truth is that it was revealed to us from the beginning of time, from the very beginning of time. When Avraham Avinu left Ur Kasdim, which is his birthplace, He did not leave Ur-Kasdim on his own. He did not leave Ur-Kasdim because the creator of the world told him to leave Ur-Kasdim. Right from the start, from the moment the human being opens his eyes, he looks out and says, what is going on? Not what's with me, what's in my bed. What is going on? Did the sun rise yet? What's the weather like? These primary questions that he identifies with, these primary questions are not responses to a superficial requirement. Yeah, I need to be able to go out. It's all based on himself. These primary questions are questions are identifying the environment in which he functions. This environment is a primary reality to the human being. This environment is what makes his life significant. His sense of life for himself, his neshama, which is the source of his intelligence, is a neshama that provides intelligence, not one that gains intelligence from experience, from practical experience. Right on the onset, it is within the fundamental neshama sense, orientation. How can I benefit and help develop and enrich the environment in which I am? His first question is not how can I protect myself against the elements and against the enemies of the world. He's not focused on the entity called himself. He's focused on the entity and the reality of existence. And he wants to be a participant in that reality. That is what a human being is. And for this reason, this is what we're discussing here. If he has the opportunity to satisfy the need and the will of an Odom Gadol, of a great person. What's an Odom Gadol? Odom Gadol is one who represents, with his life and his intelligence, the significance of life. This is a great opportunity for this simpleton to likewise be part of this reality. And to be maintained, held up in a certain meaningful state of life. And this meaningful state, I have to believe it, this meaningful state of life is not based on his personal preference. It's based on his sense of reality. The entire existence is a creation. A creation does not occur without intent, without a plan. Or I should say it even better. A creation does not occur in the absence of the creator. A creation brings along the spirit of the creator. And that is the real significance, the spirit in the creation. This is what we're learning. That in particular, AYIN has a much finer effect of this truth, that he truly seeks to be one with this spirit that created the world and the purpose for which it was created. And thus, his first statement is, how do I relate to that? How do I connect to that? How do I become part of this reality? And the answer to that very simple first question is by submission. You cannot understand what it's about. But first, participate, step into it. And then he says, yeah, of course, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So that the quote-unquote the democratic definition of the human preference. Democracy is a wonderful thing. One human being should not pressure another human being. But that does not mean that he seeks to be completely without any context. That is absolutely not the human definition of life. And this is what Rebbe explained to me here. That his greatest desire and his greatest sense of satisfaction, of rotzin and oinek, is when he can participate in the intent and the will of the Creator. The reason that the human being has, AYIN, has that sense, even though you say, hey, where does he get that from? If everything he knows is based on his personal experience, where does he get it from? The answer is that not true. What he knows is not based exclusively on his personal experience. What he knows is what is being imbued in him via something called makif. Makif means an overall reality. Nothing exists in isolation of an overall reality. If it exists, it's an insignificant existence. It's not a real existence. But the Rebbe says, it's not a dover. A dover means something that has a context and a meaning and a beginning and an end and a definitive purpose, what its message is. The human being, and again we're talking about the Yid primarily, is influenced by the present and the effect and the inspiration of this makif, of the higher and the bigger reality. This influence to him is not a superimposition upon himself, limiting his own free choice, but the opposite. This is what makes his life living. And this is why we say that Kabbalah's oil, Malchus Shemayim, is taking on a yoke. That's like forcing things upon him that is not really part of his intelligence. Kabbalah's oil doesn't really understand the full impact and full significance of this greater thing. He does not. But one thing he knows, that this is what he really wants. This is where he really belongs. This is what makes life meaningful and livable. And without this context, he cannot really subsist. He cannot really live without this context. And this is why the Rebbe says, this goes all the way down to the point of not just making sense. This is his rotzin, this is his will in existence. What makes the world desirable, life desirable. And even beyond that, life pleasant.
Well, more than pleasant, meaningful?
That's right. Meaningful is what makes life so pleasant to the human being. Oinag is an essence in the nefesh. Not because of pleasure. This is not, we have no delight. Delight and pleasure are not the same thing.
Right.
Pleasure is a personal experience. Delight is delightful, it's beautiful, it's great. This overall truth is so realistic, so real in the human being, part and parcel of his definition, to the extent you could say, okay, he wants to build a big world. No, he wants to serve a great man. When he gets an opportunity to satisfy the need and the will of a great man, that gives him joy. Because in his overall being, his senses, he has this makif influence that there has to be a makif level of the value of life. A contextual level of value of life, not just a practical experience. This is why we have this mashal. That Adam Poshet, Ish Poshet, is delighted in serving this Adam Gadol. We're not even talking about serving God, we're talking about Adam Gadol.
It means makif when you say Adam Gadol?
Adam Gadol means a great person.
Oh, that's it.
A great person.
Okay.
The reason that there is that relationship is because of the sense of the makif value of life in general. Makif value of life is not the level of life that I can fully identify and live and experience. I can be a participant in it. That's what it says. He's a participant. Nesina Mesira. He participates. It's not something that his intelligence can really grasp. That's why it's called the makif. Just as we cannot grasp in our mind and give us a definition of the space that we are observing. We are observing space, but we cannot put it in context. There's no limit to it. There's no measure to it. How are we going to put it in context? If this is true in the physical space, how much more true is this in the spiritual spirit, in inspiration of life? That is where the human being comes to life. The Ish Poshet story, the Ish Poshet presentation, is a mashal for this bigger truth. It's a mashal. The reason it's a mashal is because it's taken for granted that whether we understand the reason for it or not, but we all sense that, yes, indeed, it would be a great privilege, a great delight for us to have an opportunity to serve a great man, a great person. I have to go one step further. The reason I have to go one step further is due to the actual experience of life that we have. We have to remember, the actual experience of life that we have, to put it bluntly, is not really a natural experience. We superimpose the structure of life upon ourselves by some kind of a logical argument. Logical argument is, I should be independent. I should be independent. I'm a human being. as we discussed the other day, yesterday, this independence requirement is something which grew out of abuse of this relationship. But in fact, this interdependence is something which is enriches the human life, not draws from it. So that when we think of the fact that no, we have a resentment of being told what to do, being told what to do, or all the things that, so to speak, the democratic principles are promoting, we don't realize how untrue, how artificial some of our thinking is. Now, which is not really representative of what the human being is. Represents a reaction to a certain circumstance. The situation can be presented in the simplest terms. Who would say that he would prefer to have his palace in an isolated area, inaccessible by any other person? A palace. Or would you rather have a little hut within human society? I felt really necessity to elaborate on this because I've seen that we had some difficulty with this because of the democratic principles that were imbued in our thinking, which are not really true. Surely there is, there are certain aspects of it that are true. But to say that this is defining what a human being is, far not. So we started, I was talking about different levels in this relationship, where there is a tremendous delight in satisfying, in fulfilling the will, Shalamayla, in the divine will, as a marshal of the great man and so forth. And then the Rebbe says, okay, this is in the middle. I just want to start on this. We already touched it. The line of the page begins. The line begins with the recitation Es Rotzen Ho'eli. The line above that is Odom God. The Rebbe says Lo Mizeh. On a higher level than this, the fact that he has a joy and a satisfaction in fulfilling the will of a greater man, or fulfilling the will Shalamayla. There's a higher level than that. who it is, שמסענג בהתענוג שיש לו. That he actually experiences the tainug, the delight that the other has. Not that he is delighted in the fact that he can give delight to the other. They share the same tainug. V'hainu, the Rebbe explains, v'hainu, which means shemis'anei b'ha'tainug shelamayla, that he delights in the very same thing that Lamayla, that Elikus is mis'aneg. The nachas ruach lefonai she'amarti v'naseh l'tzoyin, that Hashem says, it is pleasing to me. It's a nachas ruach, it's a delight to me. She'amarti v'naseh l'tzoyin, when I said, and my will has been fulfilled. This is a delightful thing. Lamal, by the Meibers. This is a very fine insight, and hopefully, to some degree, we can relate to it. We started talking about it yesterday. All the Torah mitzvahs, all the demands that are imposed upon us, they're not impositions. They are the means of which the Rebbe relates to us. They're the means of which the Rebbe enables us to relate to him. And if I can reach to a point, the Rebbe says, I can bring about in my creation a point that She'amarti, I will say, and Naseh Etzoni, my will is fulfilled. This is Nachas Ruach. This is Nachas Ruach. And if we project a little bit further in this Nachas Ruach, it means that I want this world. I want to be present in this world. I want that my spirit should be enhancing this world. The spirit which is above world completely. I want it to be the inspiration of this world. On Martin, Nasan, if I said that my will has been fulfilled, this tells me that now that there's a real relationship here. It's a real world. A world without a creator is not a world. Just like a home without an owner. It's a structure. All right, so this is it for this morning.
It's just perfect.